Alright folks, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Snail W3d, and the coolest part about this is what you just saw in the beginning of this video. It's the buttons with the green LEDs. This video review is going to be pretty hard to do because this device is a nightmare. This is probably the most interesting and the most challenging device I have ever used when it comes to Android. And I'm not sure what this device actually is. I'm really not sure. So if you guys don't know what Snail, Much, or iReadyGo is, well, they're basically is the same company, and Snail took over iReadyGo and they made this new device called the W3d. It got a lot of fanfare and a lot of marketing went into it, but this device actually never came out in the United States. You can buy it. It's available for shipping, but there are a few precautions you need to take before you buy this device. So let's take a look at the outside of the device. So the Snail W3d is a MediaTek processor phone/game console. There are very few of these. You might remember the Xperia Play being one of the more popular ones. There are ones from JXD as well. So there are not many of these devices. On the outside, you'll see you have your power button, your volume rockers, you have your L1, L2, R1, R2. On the back, you have a camera. I'm not going to be reviewing this as a phone because you can go and look at the specs for that, but just as a game player. So it does have a camera with flash. I've never used it. Maybe it's good. It has two speakers, stereo speakers, one on the right and one on the left. They're back speakers. The speakers sound good, but the unfortunate part is that they're on the back. So when you keep your hand on the back while playing, it might get distorted at times and it might not. It just depends on how your hands are curved. So that's something that happens. In the front, you have a IPS 5.5 inch IPS display. The display is pretty good. It supports head tracking 3D because there's a camera in front and that actually does 3D. I haven't used the 3D feature because it's a nightmare to use. Again, you could probably do it. You can put 3D movies on it and I don't know, watch it. There's a review about this device from Dnox, a very popular reviewer, and he can tell you more about the 3D than I can because I've never used it. So also on the corners, you'll notice the layout. It has an analog nub over here. This is not an analog stick, it's a nub. And it has another one, a right analog nub. Oddly placed design. I have no idea why they did this. It has your 4 face buttons, which are sun, moon, river, and a mountain. I have no idea what that is. It's just weird. There's a D-pad, which is from a different planet. I'm not sure where they came up with this. It's not that it doesn't work. It works. It's just that what is this? First of all, this okay, I'm not going to go into that, but well, it's a D-pad. There you go. And you'll notice it has these small areas which actually light up. It has an LED feature. It actually lights up all this if you get like some sort of a notification. I haven't used this device as a phone, so I don't know. But when you're gaming, it doesn't really do that, even though there is an option in here to do that. It's called personalized definition or something. It's not working now because I've done some stuff, but it doesn't work. Okay, you can modify it as much as you want for games and stuff. Sorry, I have a cold. It doesn't work. Other stuff about this device is it has a MediaTek processor which runs at 2 gigahertz or up to 2 gigahertz, as this is a mobile SoC. For the most part, it's pretty good. I don't have any issues with lag and stutter in the main interface. It's pretty smooth. It works well. It has a menu system where if you swipe up, yeah, there you go. If you swipe up, you get your menu. You can also use these keys to operate the menu, but I'm not doing that right now. It has a few, well, this is running KitKat. First of all, let me get that out of the way. This device runs KitKat, and this is not going to ever get an update to anything beyond KitKat, as that's the case with most of these devices. So bear in mind that you are going to be using an older operating system. So if you're buying this, you're buying it for retro emulation, and that's pretty much the only thing that this device can do is retro emulation, even though it's powerful enough to run many Android games as well. But for the most part, if you are investing in this device, you're going to do it for retro gaming, and I'm going to tell you why. So let me show you some of the settings. This has something called protected background applications, application auto startup, manage, and all that stuff. It basically freezes apps on the back. It's pretty interesting. I guess it's useful for somebody who wants to use this as a phone. I guess it would be comfortable to use as a phone. It has a speaker over here. This is a phone speaker over here, and this is a phone mic over here, a small dot. I don't know if you can see it. So you could probably do that. So that's the menu. And I'm going to get into the gaming portion because this device as a phone, you could use it. It makes phone calls. That's pretty much all I can say is it makes phone calls. It has 3G, 4G. It does not have an NFC chip in it if you are into that kind of thing. And as I said, it uses KitKat. This is pretty much obsolete, so there are much better devices you can get. If you just want a phone, you can plug in a Moga or something and it'll do a heck of a better job. Okay, so from my tone, you can tell that I'm going to have a very bad reaction to this device. First of all, this is very expensive. It cost me about like $425. This is inclusive of shipping to get this device. I just got it because I was curious, and you know, that's the reason I got it. But before you get it, these are the cons. So this device, it has buttons, but any game, any Android game that supports the gamepad will not work. The reason for that is, as soon as you launch a touchscreen game, I'm going to launch Implosion here. As soon as you launch it, the touchscreen gets disabled. As you know that Android has a system where games that support touchscreen, they disable the gamepad. And you don't have touchscreen keys available to you. Well, I'm sorry, this is not going to load right now because there's another bug in this I'll get into. Okay, so you got to take my word for it. Any game that natively supports gamepads will not work, such as Modern Combat 5, Implosion. You know, maybe in some rare cases it may work because this does not use a standard HID driver. A HID driver as in a PlayStation 3 controller or a 360 driver. It does not use that. It uses a special MediaTek keypad system where you can use the touchscreen mapper, known as the key adapter, to map keys. It's over here. This is the key adapter. Once you go into games, you can use it to map stuff. I'm gonna go, I'll go in here. So let's see if I can do it. So there you go. This is the touchscreen mapper over here. So the only way to use these gamepads in 90% of the cases is use this crappy, ridiculous key mapper, which lets you swing around like your buttons, your left, right, and all that stuff. Like you put left, right, and corresponds to the keys left, right. That's the only way to use this for most stuff, for most games, Android games, and even emulators. And the reason for that is because it does not use standard HID drivers. And that is a problem. It's a really big problem because you have a mobile device with a gamepad that does not support most Android games, and you have to use a touchscreen mapper, which is really old school. Nothing, you know, not many people would want to go through the hassle of using a ridiculous touchscreen mapper when you have all the keys that you need and a game that supports the gamepad. Now this is an issue with Android games, okay? I'm not talking about emulators. Some emulators do support these keys, you know, they work fine. In fact, it has a customization option where you can turn this into A button, B button, C button. But when you do that, when you turn this into A, B, X, Y button, something crazy happens. It disables the joysticks. So if you use this, this is not going to work. I'm talking about emulators, and you know, I'm not talking about those rare Android games where it works, including Retroarch. If you try to use these buttons, Retroarch is going to disable these keys, and you can only use these buttons. And then there's another issue. So this has L1 and L2, R1 and R2, but R1 and R2 don't really work in anything. So you can map them if you have the international firmware, the Chinese firmware, which is updated. The international firmware is not updated to support R1, R2. L2, R2. So you can't do anything with it. But on the Chinese firmware, you can use the inbuilt mapper to map these keys. But even when you map these keys, you can't really use them natively in Retroarch or any emulator. Like, I have no idea why. Because after doing some digging, these are actual analog buttons, like analog buttons. What is an analog button? An analog button is something what actual 360 controllers and PlayStation 3 controllers use. Basically, when you put pressure on a button, the pressure is registered. So the more you press, the faster you go in your car. You know, your car's speed increases. It's an analog trigger. So this is a real analog trigger. And I have no idea. I mean, it's great that they put it in, but why would you do that on a device like this and not even include it like in the key layout or any reasonable way for anyone to use? Why? What are you doing? Like, why do you have actual analog triggers and no way to map it to anything? Even with the touchscreen mapper working, that's fine. But why can't you just use it in games like Modern Combat 5? Modern Combat 5 requires R2 in the first level. Like, right when you open, you have to click R2, and you can't because there is no R2, register. It doesn't work. So, that's something. So basically, this is all useless unless, now there is a fix for all of this. And if you are a hardcore user, you can fix this to about 90% for emulation. And the way for that is you have to have a program called TinCore. This is TinCore. If you don't have TinCore, you should not buy this device. Without TinCore, this device is unusable. It's just, you can't do anything with it. You can play a bunch of Nintendo games, like old NES games, which only use the D-pad and the face buttons. But if you want to use all these keys together, you have to use TinCore. So I have TinCore, and what TinCore does is that it registers all of these keys and it turns it into a Moga. You can emulate a Moga. So basically, it takes these keys and converts it into a Moga controller. And that's a great workaround, but I think a device that's been made for gaming should probably, they should have worked on it. I mean, companies like GPD and JXD got over all of this stuff a long time ago. This is a very, very old school thing. And this is not my first Much device. I had a Much i5S, and that one had the same problems. It seems like they just copy pasted the firmware. So I have no idea what they were thinking. Either their team ran away or their engineers just said, what the hell, why put in the effort to just write a standard hit driver? Let's just release it the way it is. There you go. So now that we're done with that, I'm going to tell you what I did to make this work. Basically, I downloaded TinCore and it registered these keys, but then there's another problem. There's an inbuilt driver, goes by the name of MTK-KPD. So that one conflicts with TinCore. So what you have to do is you have to go to the key layout folder and you have to delete that driver as well. So once you do that, then you can actually go to Retroarch and things would actually work. So I'm going to push a key and look what happens. It's going to actually work. You see that small yellow thing that's set over there? I don't know if you could actually see it. Basically, it registered the keys as a Moga driver, and now I can use my D-pad and my joystick together in this. So I don't have an issue at all. But if you try to do this without deleting, without using TinCore, it's not going to work. It's either going to use this or it's going to use that. You'll have to use the touchscreen mapper, which is this one, to put in your keys and stuff, which is a real pain in the ass. I mean, yeah, you could use it, but I don't know. That's just not something I want to do, especially for retro games. So I got all these control issues out of the way, and these are just warnings for you guys. If you want this device, you need to put the work and you have to know what you're doing, because if you don't know what you're doing, you should not get this device. This is an enthusiast device, kind of similar to my iPlay, which I have modified. There you go. This is my iPlay. It's modified. So if you're somebody who has the iPlay and know what they're doing, it's fine. You know how to edit key layout folders. You know how to use TinCore. Then it's okay. It's not that bad, because when you actually start using the device to play games with the actual keys that it was supposed to work with, it runs pretty well. So let's take a look at a few games. So let's start with Pico Drive. So this is Musha. If you guys watch Classic Game Room, you probably know Musha is, pretty good, solid shmup. Oh, another thing that I forgot to mention, this does not have a start. It doesn't have a start and select button. The start and select button are here. This is start and select, but it doesn't do anything. So there you go. You can't even start a game. Yes, you could use the touchscreen. I have the touchscreen over here, which I could use. So basically, if you have the on-screen buttons, I have them. The transparency is really low right now, so I'm not gonna, go through, but it's there somewhere. So what I have done is I have converted the volume up key into a start button. You can do that with TinCore. So when I press volume up, game start. Okay. So this is Musha. And it works fine. I don't have an issue. If you guys want to hear the volume, there you go. I'm going to be playing it very poorly because, well, I am playing it on a camera. Let's turn that down. So the responsiveness of the keys is also an issue. If you don't, the keys are fine. The keys respond fine, but the analog stick, you have to modify it in Retroarch. You have to decrease the threshold to about 364. So once you do that, it's pretty responsive. The keys work as they should, but the issue is that these face buttons are pretty hard. They're not soft keys. Ideally, you want a soft key, because when you push a button, you don't want to put too much effort, because you're going to be tapping this button a lot, and after a while your thumb is going to hurt a bit. So I don't know, some people say that over time this is going to change. It's going to become softer because you keep using it, you break into it. I don't know, maybe not, but these keys are a bit too hard and they can get uncomfortable. They certainly got uncomfortable for me for a while. I have gotten used to it to a certain extent, but I still feel a tingling sort of pain in my thumb when I actually keep pressing this like 1,000 times while playing Musha or any other shmups. So that's one thing. So let's exit out of here and let's look at something else. That's why I get pretty confused with the start button, because I've made the volume up into a start button. So this is Raystorm for the PlayStation 1. And it works well. It works like any decent Android device would. I don't have much of an issue. So this is also a shmup. I've been into shmups lately, so this is what I play. So you do get used to the keys. I mean, it's not that bad. The keys are a bit hard. The D-pad is also okay. It registers the keys, but the thing what I was telling you about the D-pad, it's like from an alien planet, because the face area is just too big. If I want to press left, sorry, if I want to press left, my thumb has to reach all the way this side to press left. If I want to do it this way, I have to reach all the way right, all the way up. I can't do it fast enough. You know, I need to be faster. I don't need this gap. This can be fixed if you want to put a cap on it or something. You can probably modify it. So let me just turn off rotation. So yeah, if you can modify the D-pad, that would probably help. It can work better. But as it is, it's, even though I have a pretty big thumb, I have big hands, the travel area to get to these buttons is kind of bad. You know, it's not very useful, especially for a shmup. You can see I can do diagonal movements. Here you go, see diagonals? That's fine, but it just takes too long. So you have to use this nub. The nub is okay, it works well for most things. So let's just get into something else. PPSSPP. PPSSPP performs okay, it performs fine. There can be, sometimes there could be an issue with the frame rate where you have to use frame skip. Not because of the actual emulation, it's because the refresh rate is on this is, I believe it's like 58. So that can be an issue. Let's just load a state. So there you go, this is Phantasy Star for the PSP. It's skipping a bit because I've put this frame skip too high. It's not that it doesn't work smoothly, it does, it's just I have put the frame skip in a certain way so that I don't have much of those lag spikes. And the screen looks pretty good, you know. Unfortunately, you can't turn on 3D. There's an option for 3D, but you can't turn it on games and stuff. It's only for video. And as I said, I haven't used it on video. So, oops, that's the speed button. Okay. That's the... Well, anyway, this is Phantasy Star on the PlayStation Portable emulator. So I did want to show you guys one Android game at least, and I'm going to show you what the issue is. So this is Implosion. As you can see, I'm still using Retroarch, and I'm going to disable it so that you get an idea of what's going on here. So let's just disable it. Okay. So when you disable Retroarch, your keys sort of work. I mean, the D-pad works, and I think well, none of this crap works. Okay, so this doesn't work, and I'm gonna show you what the problem is here. So when you start this game, so see, none of the face buttons work. You kind of have to tap this screen, and I don't even know where to tap because there's no way you can find that out. It actually disables everything, so you can't use any of the buttons. Another problem is you can't do anything. All you can do is move. That's it. And this is an issue with all much devices, not just this. And it's going to affect pretty much any game that supports gamepads. So basically all you do is this. That's it. This is your gameplay for native Android games. You can use your joystick to move around, and it can be kind of fun. You just kind of dodge around this really slow moving zombie and or electro, whatever it is. So here's your game. And now you might think that you could use this with Tin Core, but no, that doesn't work either. Because even with Tin Core, whenever you launch an app, for some reason MediaTek automatically disables these keys, and it turns it into like end call and back button. This becomes back, end call, menu. I have no idea why. And I've tried, a lot of us have tried on the Dingoinity forums to fix this. You can't. There's something internally going on that it just can't be fixed. And I'm gonna tell you another thing. Let's bring in Amoga. So even with Amoga Pro, I mean, this is not, yeah, I believe this is Amoga Pro. This does not work. No Android game that supports gamepads actually work. None that I've tried. Even with the Bluetooth controller, even if they're supported, it just doesn't work. Why? I have no idea, because it's MediaTek and it's Much or iReadyGo, whatever those guys are doing. You guys are doing a really good job, and must congratulate you on making such a good device with such good design. I really like the design. You know, it's thin, it's sleek, it's something I would like to carry around and use, but it's broken. The D-pad is weird, from a different planet. The face buttons don't work in most games. The driver is shit because it's just all over the place. So I have no idea what to say, you know. I don't know what to say. The good thing I can say when it comes to gaming is games that don't support the controller, ironically, they work really well, because you could just use the touchscreen mapper, which is actually pretty easy to use. You know, you use the keypad mapper, you put them on the touchscreen, and you just use it. It's fine, it works. But the ones that support it natively, they don't work. You have to modify it, and you have to use you have to use tin core, and you have to use Retroarch. The reason I use Retroarch, it has some advanced settings for, you know, your analog nub, so it can decrease the threshold and you can use it in a better fashion. What else have I not talked about? Oh, okay. So another thing, when you put an SD card into this, it automatically assumes that all your apps are on the SD card, and most of the apps don't work. So there you go. This is amazing. Basically, if you put an SD card, your apps are not going to work. It's another cool feature of this device. I know I'm kind of hitting on this, like I'm, you know, crapping this device for people who are enthusiasts. But, you know, if you, as I said, if you're an enthusiast, don't worry. You can fix most of these issues, except the SD card, with tin core and Retroarch. You can, if you want to play games, retro games, PlayStation games, some Dreamcast games, if you want to play Super Nintendo, you can do it. Yeah, it's not that you can't do it. It's just you have to know what you're doing, you know. And if you're getting this device as a phone with, you know, that happens to have buttons, it may work for you. It could, you know, for some people. Personally, I would say just get something like a Galaxy or Xperia phone with a Moga if you really want that. I don't know what else to say. This is the Much W3d, and it's amazing. And you should definitely, well, you should definitely get it if you're an enthusiast and if you can modify stuff. Because if you modify it, it does work. It does do a lot of the stuff it should do. But this should not be the case for mainstream users. Unfortunately, it is the case for mainstream users, so there you go. It does have dual SIM support if that's something you require. The other features, I don't think there's anything else I've missed. The heat wise, it doesn't really get that hot. I haven't noticed it. The heat is centered around here, so you don't notice it much because you're holding it this way. Ergonomically, it's fine. It's thin enough and light enough that it doesn't really hurt your fingers or anything. You know, you can use it pretty well, so that's not an issue at all. And well, I guess I should just, I don't know, I'm just in awe, you know. I want to like this device. I want to like pretty much every device iReadyGo makes, because the Much i5 was a great form factor. This is a good form factor. It has these LED lights that you'll probably never see. But it's just so bad when it comes to software. The software is just terrible. Like, terrible. Why? And all of this can be fixed with a simple driver update. It can be fixed. It's just, it will never be fixed. And I have no idea why. You know, a company that puts so much money into marketing, into making this device, finding good material. This is actually pretty good material. It does have you can open this plastic back for, you know, putting your SIM card and your SD card slot. It has good things about it. You know, I really like the layout. I like the feel of it. It's just really sad that the software cannot be fixed, You know, all they need to do is a driver update and put HID controls in it. HID, HID. Not MediaTek input crap. HID controls. All they have to do is this, but they are not going to do it. Why? Because God knows. So, this is my review of the Much W3d. If you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you dislike it, go ahead and dislike it. But as always, thank you for watching.